Guys, what we're going to cover today is just some like three basic things that you can do to help with retention and also client results. But based on your experience, Paul, why is it kind of important to get someone a positive result in their first 4 to 6 weeks whilst you're coaching them?
Cool. So with that, that's something that, I've come up with a little bit of pushback from a lot of coaches, because everyone hears me talk about things like sustainability, scalability with their clients and long-term results. And yet I push people to get a quick result. And people are like, but that's the opposite of sustainability. I'm like, it's not. It drives sustainability. So, momentum creates more momentum. It's like, when in business, if you make like 3,000 on Monday, the rest of the week is awesome. Yeah, you're pumped up on what you're doing. But if you make nothing on Monday to Thursday, like your Friday sales, like, thank God I'm not going to, I'm not a total failure. So you need to get fast victories with your clients in multiple ways, because what that also does is it takes care of a really important cognitive bias that people have. So when people think you're an expert in one thing and they think you're really awesome, they think you're really awesome at lots of different things. So if you can solve one problem, you can solve a lot of problems. It's, I'm not picking on him as such, but like Jordan Peterson, for example, brilliant at psychology, right? Stupid at diet, stupid shit. Like talking about everyone should just eat meat and salt, and that's it.
Steak and salt. That was kind of, I want to do an episode on carnivore with you. Maybe we can do it next week.
We'll talk about, carnivore has application for some people, but not all people. But because he is so highly regarded here, if he says something that's not ideal, his followers are still going to listen to him because they think he's here. So if we get our clients' result in food, for example, or a little psychological victory or movement victory, day 1, day 2, within day 7, they actually then trust the program. You need to deliver a victory to get trust. When you get trust, you get buy-in. When you get buy-in, you get adherence, you get results.
Yeah, and I love that you say that, because I obviously love marketing and sales. So, any quick result that you do get does become something that you can market. But also in a sale is one of my mentors first told me when I was doing one-on-one PT is he's like, every session that you do is actually selling the next session in terms of retention. So I found just like helping people get a positive result, no matter how small or big, actually help them become more coachable as well, because they started to believe in the process a little bit more. And look, no one wants to hear, oh, it's going to take 52 weeks for you to reach your goals and things like that. It's such a big timeline. And mate, you talk a little bit with your first point on how to get small victories with food during someone's first 28 days. What do you mean by that?
Cool. So my first pillar and principle of getting someone a result in the first 28 days to 6 weeks is we want to, realistically, we can't elicit a hypertrophy change in the first, couple of weeks, right? There's some small hypertrophy, but it's never going to be noticeable. Strength, absolutely, you can do that because people learn it. But in terms of someone's long-term results, if I go back to that sustainability thing, changing someone's relationship with food, where they don't use it to manage stress, to deal with emotional problems, or as a comfort thing, will change their physique for the rest of their life. So if we can then point out someone's small food-based victories in the first week, 2 weeks, 3, 4 weeks, that leads to that process happening ongoing. So for example, day 1, I get a food journal, or someone sends in the gym, you get a food journal, you get MyFitnessPal, you get photos of the food. It doesn't matter how you deliver it, as long as the client does it. And say week 1, the worst one I ever had was a client who would have Doritos for breakfast every day.
Doritos?
Doritos.
How good? Doritos, I love Doritos.
They're amazing. They're amazing. But they're not a breakfast
crazy. Food. It's kind of not so. But anyway, so they had Doritos.
Yeah, and what we did was I do a coaching technique called specific, impact, change, or continue. So I point out the specific when I look at someone's food journal. I ask them for the impact of what it has on their results, and I ask them if they want to change it or continue. So specific, hey, Jimmy, I know you're having a big pack of Doritos at breakfast every morning. How's that affecting your training? How's it affecting your recovery? How's it affecting your weight loss, your digestion, blah, blah, blah. So get the client to actually admit, this is shit. This is bad for me. And then do you want to change or continue? Then she did, but you, Jimmy, you pick a new breakfast or a new option to go for. My job is just to be your cheerleader and say, that's unreal. And then what we do is we look at 2 weeks later, it's like, Jimmy, man, you're now having oats and protein powder for breakfast. 2 weeks ago, you were having freaking Doritos, man. How do you feel? And then you point out to the client, you ask them as many questions as you can. How's your sleep changed? How's your digestion change? How's your gut health? Like whatever it is, digestion, gut health, same thing. But you basically get the client to facilitate a change themselves, ask them how that change has impacted them. And then it's always like when you have that aha moment, when you go, shit, that's what I've been doing wrong the whole time. It's so much more impactful when someone's standing over the top of you calling you an idiot.
Yeah.
When you realize you're an idiot yourself and you're the cause of the problems, you have that realization and then it creates real change. This client will now look at that small food-based victory and go, oh my God, I was doing something absolutely terrible. Now I'm actually doing something cool. I can do this. And it creates that positive momentum for the next thing.
And when you're coaching someone through that, Paul, so just say, for example, I was having Doritos, do you kind of give them a couple of different options of what they could choose, or do you let the client choose? And as long as it's better and positive, you stick with that. How much you go? Because obviously Doritos to oats and proteins, like a pretty good change. It's like perfect, right? But say, how do you kind of coach people through that? It's very interesting.
So with that, we've looked at like the theory of motivation. Like people need autonomy over things. They need intrinsic motivation, and they need competence or mastery, and that drives intrinsic motivation for the long term. So if someone's a level 1, which is a beginner client in my eyes, or a level 2 and intermediate, I'll let them make suggestions, and unless it's totally stupid, I won't step in.
Like going from Doritos to barbecue chips, you'd be like, you're a fucking idiot. But if it's better, you'll roll.
Yeah, if it's better, I roll with it. And the difference if it's a level 3, so someone doing a physique prep or whatever, I give them a quick uppercut because they're having Doritos at breakfast, and I say, you're eating this, and they get a meal plan. But that's a separate context. So as long as they do well, and then what we do is for the next part of it, 28 days, 6 weeks, we just go to, next time I see the food journal, cool. Jimmy, I've noticed now that you've gone from Doritos at breakfast to having some yogurt and granola. That's amazing. Now your next thing is I notice that you're having 12 beers at night, and then the person will make that change from that. So if they go from 12 beers to 6 beers, I'm their biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
So the process is get one and then choose the next limiting factor. Once you got one, choose the next limiting factor. And then like within 4 weeks, you knock off 4, 6 huge limiting factors. And there's also kind of like the health halo effect. So as soon as you make one positive choice, you start looking for other positive choices. So the client psychology started to shift anyway.
Mate, I love it. It's do you know that company Eat This Not That? Do you remember that? So when I was a trainer, so I haven't been a trainer now, Paul, in about 5 years, but when I was a trainer, they were really big. They had this cool Instagram page where it was like, and instead of eating a Big Mac, eat this. So it's kind of like, it's kind of pretty similar, but a little bit different. You've done a lot of study around psychology, hey? How did you do some, formal education on that, or is it something you've picked up? Because it's quite impressive.
A bit of both. So I've done halfway through a degree in psych as well. I do uni full time as well as doing all of this because I tend to be a glutton for punishment, which I can't help myself.
Just a forever learner you are, hey? You love it.
I think it's just overactive brain. But then also real overactive and don't know how to relax and shut down, which is a problem in itself, but that's another episode. I find like after doing all the Poliquin stuff and check stuff for probably the first 10 years, exclusively focusing on the really nuts and bolts, numbers, facts, figures, biomechanics side of things, I found I was talking to my clients up here and they were listening to me down here and the results were here. I was like, I'm talking like this is mad stuff I'm talking about. Like, oh my God, you don't know what your mean corpuscular hemoglobin is doing to you and your signs of hydration. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about, Paul? I'm like, water is good. How could you get more water into your diet, Jimmy? And basically when I started seeing that was what was holding me back. I was all up here. And then I was getting clients because I was good, but my adherence to stuff wasn't as good as it could be because it was like, I had to address the human in the room. And unfortunately for me, this sucks. I'm really good facts, figures, technical stuff. I wasn't as good with the human in the room, like interpersonal relationships, all that stuff. So I dived into that both formally and then also like, reading books and articles and studies and journals to learn about how to actually communicate with people better to do this better.